Jenna Campbell and Tyler Wallace were never supposed to fall in love. Their affair began as a reckless thrill between neighbors, two people entangled in a night of wife-swapping that was meant to be harmless fun. But what started as a secret passion spiraled into betrayal, obsession, and ultimately, a brutal murder that shocked a quiet California suburb to its core. This is the true crime story of how trust unraveled, marriages collapsed, and one man turned deadly in a calculated act of revenge. In the heart of suburban California, nestled among freshly cut lawns and cookie-cutter homes, lived two seemingly perfect couples. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of place where families waved from driveways and children rode bikes until the streetlights came on. It was the last place anyone would expect scandal, much less a crime so disturbing it would grip national headlines. But behind the trimmed hedges and sunny facades, darkness was growing. Mike and Jenna Campbell had been married for 8 years. Mike was a methodical, soft-spoken man who worked as a senior accountant at a mid-sized financial firm. He liked numbers, routines, and predictability. Jenna, on the other hand, was vibrant and social. She was known around the neighborhood for organizing holiday parties and helping with school fundraisers, despite having no children of her own. She filled her days with yoga, wine clubs, and managing the household while Mike worked long hours. Together, they appeared balanced, a couple who had figured out how to make marriage last. Next door lived Tyler and Brooke Wallace. Tyler was younger than Mike by nearly 10 years. He ran a local gym, had a muscular build, and a confident energy that drew people to him. His wife, Brooke, had a rough edge softened by beauty. She worked nights at a popular lounge downtown, a job that gave her independence and a bit of mystery. Unlike Jenna and Mike, the Wallaces didn't try as hard to appear perfect. They were more relaxed, more impulsive, but somehow, the two couples clicked. Their friendship began innocently. Tyler offered to help Mike with landscaping one weekend. Brooke and Jenna bonded over wine nights. Soon the couples were spending every Saturday together, hiking, barbecuing, or simply drinking wine until midnight on someone's patio. They vacationed in Tahoe, celebrated birthdays together, and even exchanged house keys for emergencies. It was a friendship built on laughter, shared experiences, and over time a dangerous level of comfort. The closeness began to shift when the group started playing riskier games, truth or dare, adult-themed card games, teasing that slowly turned into flirtation. There were glances that lasted too long, touches that lingered, and jokes that carried a hint of something real underneath. No one talked about it directly, but everyone felt it, the tension, the thrill. The group had reached a point where curiosity had overtaken caution. One night, after several bottles of wine and an evening in the hot tub, someone, no one would later admit who, brought up the idea of wife-swapping. Just for fun. Just once. There was nervous laughter, awkward glances, but no immediate rejection. It was framed as a harmless experience, something adventurous to do as adults who trusted each other. The group agreed to sleep on it, but by the following weekend, the decision was made. The first encounter happened at the Campbells' house. Rules were set: full consent, full honesty, no secrets. Everything was supposed to be equal, respectful, and contained. And for that night, it was. The group parted with hugs and laughter, relieved that nothing had gone wrong. But something had shifted beneath the surface. It wasn't just about the thrill anymore. Something deeper had been stirred: curiosity, desire, even jealousy. The once simple friendship had crossed into something unpredictable. While they told themselves it was just a one-time experience, they all knew it wouldn't end there. The couples were now entangled in ways they didn't fully understand. Trust was cracking, even as the appearances of friendship remained intact. The calm streets of their suburb hit a growing storm, one that would soon break in the most violent way imaginable. After that first night, everything changed, though no one dared to say it aloud. The couples continued their weekly gatherings, pretending things were just as they had always been. But under the surface, the mood had shifted. Conversations felt more loaded. Casual glances were heavier and silences lingered a little too long. What had started as a bold experiment was now quietly unraveling the boundaries between friendship, marriage, and desire. It didn't take long before the once shared arrangement became unequal. Jenna, who had always craved more excitement than her quiet suburban life offered, began seeking out Tyler alone. At first it was small. Text messages under innocent pretenses, quick conversations at the gym while Mike was at work. But soon, the meetings became intentional. Jenna would find reasons to drop by the Wallace house when Brooke wasn't home. She began dressing differently, more provocatively, and Tyler, flattered by the attention and already intoxicated by their first encounter, didn't push her away. What started as a secret thrill quickly turned into a full-blown affair. They told themselves it was just about the physical, but both knew it went deeper. Jenna began pulling away from Mike emotionally, often claiming she felt tired or distracted. Mike noticed the changes, the late returns from yoga class, the sudden secrecy with her phone, the shift in her moods. She smiled less, touched him less, and made excuses to avoid intimacy. Still, Mike didn't confront her. He told himself he was imagining things. After all, they had agreed to that one night together as couples. Maybe this was just the aftermath, a temporary awkwardness. But the signs continued piling up. One day, while doing laundry, Mike found a second phone hidden inside Jenna's gym bag. The screen lit up with a message from Tyler. It wasn't vague, it wasn't innocent, it left no doubt. Mike didn't say anything. He felt something inside him break, but instead of lashing out, he began to observe. He turned quiet and methodical. He followed Jenna's routines, noting every time she went to the store or had lunch with a friend. He checked gas mileage, receipts, and eventually planted a small camera in their bedroom. If she was going to lie to him, he wanted proof. Meanwhile, Brooke had her own suspicions. She wasn't naive. Tyler had always been flirtatious, but lately, he'd become distant. He stayed late at work more often and guarded his phone obsessively. One evening, Brooke decided to follow him. She parked across the street from a local motel and waited. An hour later, she saw him arrive, with Jenna. They didn't even try to hide. Watching them embrace so casually made Brooke feel sick. She didn't confront Tyler immediately. Instead, she stewed in her anger. She started drinking more, staying out late, and ignoring his questions. She needed to think, to plan. And then, fate handed her an opportunity. A week later, she saw Mike sitting alone at a coffee shop. She approached him. His face said it all. He already knew. They didn't need many words. Their pain was mutual, and so was their sense of betrayal. From that point forward, Brooke and Mike began seeing each other regularly, not in a romantic way at first, but to vent, to piece together what their spouses were hiding. Slowly, their conversations turned into strategy. If Jenna and Tyler were going to play games, they would too. But while Brooke wanted to confront the cheaters and expose them, Mike had something darker in mind. He smiled too calmly, spoke too slowly, and started asking strange questions. Neither of them could predict how far things would go. But they both knew one thing. What had started as an adventure had now turned into a dangerous obsession, and none of them would leave it unscarred. Mike's mind had always worked in patterns, numbers, dates, routines. He found comfort in order. But ever since he discovered Jenna's betrayal, his world had fallen out of alignment. Each day brought new questions, new lies, and a deeper sense of rage that burned quietly beneath his calm exterior. On the outside, he still went to work, still mowed the lawn, still waved at neighbors. But inside, he was unraveling in silence. And as he watched Jenna carry on as though nothing had changed, something inside him shifted. He didn't want an apology. He wanted control. Brooke, meanwhile, was dealing with her own spiral. She had never considered herself fragile, but the discovery of Tyler's affair shook her. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Jenna, the woman she had trusted, had stolen the one person who made her feel secure. Brooke tried to mask the pain with distractions, nights out, long shifts at the lounge, and casual flings. But nothing dulled the anger. Like Mike, she became consumed with thoughts of revenge. Their secret meetings became more frequent. At first, it was just about sharing details, comparing timelines, confirming suspicions. But slowly, a plan began to take shape. They started discussing scenarios, testing each other's limits. Brooke suggested confronting Jenna and Tyler together, exposing them in front of friends or recording them in the act. But Mike wanted more. He wanted to humiliate them, to make them feel the same helplessness he had endured. And though Brooke wasn't ready to admit it, part of her wanted that too. Mike began laying groundwork. He bought new surveillance equipment and installed hidden cameras around his house. He tracked Jenna's movements with a GPS app she didn't know about. He even went so far as to clone her burner phone, reading every text exchanged between her and Tyler in real time. Nothing was private anymore. Every smile, every kiss, every lie. They were all recorded. Brooke was less precise, more emotional in her approach. She began subtly needling Tyler with questions she already knew the answers to, watching him lie with ease. At night, she stared at him while he slept, wondering how he could be so careless, so unbothered. Sometimes she thought about leaving. Other times she thought about worse. One night as Mike and Brooke sat in her car outside a diner, Mike laid out his idea. A final night together. All four of them. No suspicions, no confrontations. Just like old times, a second chance, an attempt to reset the dynamic. Brooke was hesitant. It felt like a trap, and in truth it was. Mike wasn't just planning a night of exposure. He was planning a spectacle. He wanted to see the shock on Jenna's face when she realized he knew everything. He wanted Tyler to suffer. But most of all, he wanted to regain the power that had been taken from him. To convince Brooke, Mike played on her pain. He reminded her of the betrayal, the humiliation. He spoke softly but with precision, describing what Tyler had done in detail, using the words from his own texts. It worked. Brooke finally agreed. Over the next week, they staged everything carefully. Mike invited Jenna to host the evening at their house, suggesting they recreate that first night for old time's sake. Tyler was enthusiastic, eager for the thrill. Jenna acted surprised but agreed quickly. Brooke played along, masking her dread with forced smiles. Everything was set. Wine would be poured, candles lit, music low and seductive. Mike prepared the house with precision. Cameras in the corners, lockable doors. He hid a weapon in the kitchen drawer just in case. The others thought they were walking into a game. But for Mike, this night would be the end of everything. The lies, the secrets, the betrayals. In his mind, justice wasn't a courtroom. It was 4 people in one room, and only 3 would leave. The night arrived with eerie stillness. The air outside was warm and still, as if even nature was holding its breath. Inside the Campbell house, everything was staged perfectly. Soft music played through the speakers, low and sensual. Dim lighting gave the rooms a golden glow. Wine glasses sparkled on the table. Candles flickered along the mantel. It was a scene designed to disarm, to seduce, to set everyone at ease. But beneath the warm ambiance was a calculated design, a trap dressed up as a reunion. Jenna and Tyler arrived together laughing, their energy buzzing with anticipation. They had grown careless, too confident in their deception. Brooke arrived shortly after, wearing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She had spent the entire day trying to talk herself out of going, but something pulled her forward, a toxic blend of curiosity, pain, and unfinished revenge. Mike greeted them all calmly, his usual stoic presence now hiding a storm of emotion. If anyone sensed tension, they didn't show it. Or maybe they didn't want to. The night began smoothly. Drinks flowed, jokes were told, and the 4 of them eased into old rhythms. There were lingering touches, shared glances, and half-hearted laughter. It was as if they were trying to recapture something that had already slipped too far away. Underneath it all, every word, every movement was being recorded. Mike had wired the entire living room and bedroom with hidden cameras. Every angle, every moment, it would all be captured. As the evening progressed, Brooke found herself caught between anger and numbness. Watching Jenna and Tyler flirt openly in front of her, pretending the past weeks hadn't happened, twisted something inside her, but she held it in. She had agreed to this. She had agreed to the plan. Eventually, Mike suggested they move to the bedroom. No one objected. It was supposed to feel spontaneous, natural. But to Mike, every second was part of the schedule. The room was already prepared. Wine glasses on the nightstand, soft sheets, a discreet camera hidden behind the TV. Things began as expected. Clothes were removed. The air was thick with forced intimacy. For a moment it was almost as if they were back at the beginning, 4 people tangled together, chasing pleasure and pretending nothing was wrong. Then Mike stood up and left the room. No one thought much of it. He said he needed some air, maybe another drink. But when he returned, he wasn't carrying wine. In his hand was a hammer. He didn't speak. He didn't pause. He walked straight toward Tyler and struck him in the back of the head. The blow was sickeningly loud, sudden, final. Blood sprayed across the white sheets. Jenna screamed, frozen for a moment in disbelief. Brooke jumped back, her face pale with shock. Tyler collapsed instantly, his body twitching once before going still. Jenna tried to run, but Brooke blocked the doorway. For a moment there was silence, then chaos. Jenna pushed Brooke, knocking her into the dresser. Mike lunged again, but Jenna scrambled past him, slipping on the blood-stained floor. She grabbed a wine bottle and swung blindly. It smashed against the wall. She bolted down the hallway, barefoot, bleeding, screaming. In the struggle, Brooke fell backward onto the broken glass, slicing into her shoulder and side. Mike stood over her, breathing hard, his shirt soaked with blood. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Jenna, hysterical and covered in blood, collapsed in the neighbor's front yard. Brooke lay in the hallway, slipping in and out of consciousness. And Mike, now calm again, walked into the living room, sat on the couch, and waited. The hammer was still in his hand. By the time the police arrived, Tyler was dead. Brooke was barely alive. Jenna had escaped with severe injuries. And Mike, the man who had once lived a quiet, orderly life, simply told the officers he had been betrayed. And now, everything was finished. The aftermath of that night would ripple far beyond the quiet suburban neighborhood where it all began. News of the crime spread rapidly, first through local channels, then across national media. Headlines screamed betrayal, sex, and murder, ingredients that drew instant attention. Neighbors were stunned. Reporters swarmed the street. The Campbell and Wallace homes became symbols of a twisted tragedy that no one could have predicted, at least not from the outside. Mike Campbell was arrested on the scene without resistance. He was found sitting calmly on his couch, hands bloodstained, the murder weapon resting beside him. Police officers reported how emotionless he appeared, as though the chaos he had unleashed was simply the closing act in a performance he had rehearsed countless times in his mind. In interviews, he admitted to everything. He gave exact details of the plan, the surveillance, the betrayal. There was no attempt to deny or deflect. He seemed proud, even relieved. Jenna survived her injuries, though the physical wounds were only part of her trauma. In the hospital, she refused to speak to investigators for days. When she finally did, her story was fragmented and emotional. She claimed she never meant to hurt anyone, that the affair with Tyler was just a mistake, something she thought was under control. But it was clear that things had gone far beyond her understanding. She moved out of town shortly after her release, changed her name, and disappeared from public view. Her social media accounts were deleted. She gave no interviews. For most, she became a ghost, a central figure in the story who vanished from it completely. Brooke Wallace survived as well, but just barely. She spent 2 weeks in intensive care recovering from the deep glass wounds and blood loss. Her testimony was critical to the case. Prosecutors struck a deal. In exchange for her full cooperation, she would be charged with obstruction and conspiracy, but not as an accomplice to murder. Her sentence was 5 years in a medium security facility, with eligibility for parole after 3. During the trial, she appeared gaunt and tired, a woman worn down by grief and guilt. She gave a detailed account of how the plan was formed, admitting her role but insisting she never expected Mike to go through with the violence. Whether that was true remained unclear. Tyler's death was ruled a homicide by blunt force trauma. His family, devastated by the loss, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against both Mike and Brooke. The civil court awarded them a large settlement, forcing the sale of both homes. The money did little to ease their pain. Tyler's funeral drew hundreds, but the memory of how he died overshadowed the man he was in life. His reputation was tarnished, complicated by his role in the affair and the events that led to his murder. The trial itself lasted only a few weeks. With Mike's full confession, the prosecution had a clear path. He was found guilty of second-degree murder and attempted murder. The judge, citing premeditation and the brutal nature of the crime, sentenced him to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. In his final statement to the court, Mike expressed no remorse. He blamed everyone but himself: Jenna for cheating, Tyler for betrayal, and Brooke for being weak. His words shocked even his own defense team. The neighborhood never recovered. The Campbell and Wallace homes sat vacant for months, eventually sold to developers at a loss. Locals avoided the street. Children crossed to the other side when walking home from school. Rumors circulated about hauntings, curses, and strange noises at night. What was once a peaceful cul-de-sac became a place people spoke about in whispers. The story was later adapted into a documentary, then a podcast, each version drawing new waves of attention. But for those who lived through it, it wasn't just a story. It was a warning that beneath the surface of even the most perfect lives, darkness can hide. And when lines are crossed, there's no telling how far people will go to take back control or to destroy what they've lost.